Hello, everybody, and welcome to the People's Choice Podcast, the podcast where we look at films that were reviewed poorly on release but are now loved by us, the fans, today. On this episode of Return of Jennifer Check, we explore the recently appreciated Jennifer's Body. I'm Ewan Austin, joined by my co-host Blake Ali, but we're spoilers for the entire film.
The movie is about a teenage girl in high school being sacrificed by an indie band, and she becomes a succubus and starts eating boys. It's a really interesting dark horror movie that we're going to discuss today. I think the marketing was a big part of why it wasn't successful at the beginning of its release. Diablo Cody originally wrote the movie for young women and teenage girls, and the marketing team went the opposite direction and marketed it towards straight young males between the age of 18 and 24. They did screen testing where they brought in straight males who Megan Fox said that they were like frat guys, and they were expecting to see Megan Fox stripped down and be naked, and I think the marketing team really played on Megan Fox's sex appeal at the time.
I especially get the marketing issue. For years, at least, I heard the film basically be described as the sexy cannibal cheerleader movie. Even when it came out, Roger Ebert even said that the film is a lot better than it deserves to be. But it's not a film that deserves to be better than it is. It's a film that is actually better than it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's the thing. There's a lot of hidden gems in the film that if you're looking at it from like a superficial perspective, you miss a lot of that. And then it's when you rewatch it and you like understand the like themes behind it and the humor behind it that it makes so much more sense, I think. But I do know that from looking at reviews and what people, the audiences have said, was that there's really mixed reviews even now. Like, I was looking at reviews from 2019 and people were just like, I don't get it. It's still like, it's just a shit film, and it's not a shit film. It's just, you either get it or you don't, or you learn to understand it, I think.
I know when it came out, a lot of people compared it to Twilight of all films, which I don't really get the comparison. I'd compare it more to some like similar horror films like Carrie, or even to a more extreme extent, I Spit on Your Grave, because those films also follow female leads who are placed into a position where they're taken advantage of, and then they come out of that situation more powerful. Yeah, Twilight, I always feel like is kind of, I don't know, the reverse of that, and I don't understand why this film was compared to Twilight so much.
I know, I've seen the same thing, and I think at the time Twilight was so successful that people just immediately, associated it because in their minds it was the reverse of Twilight. It's this teenage girl who is like mystifying maybe and also like enticing, and it's not that at all. I was actually like doing more research and I watched a podcast called The Feminine Mistake on YouTube, and they discussed Jennifer's Body, and they talked about how in the marketing that they didn't even show Needy a lot. Like, she wasn't in the trailer very much. The only part I think she was in was where they're kissing. And they really pushed the narrative that it was this sexy horror and that the main focus was Jennifer, and it's not that kind of film at all. Like, the relationship between Needy and Jennifer is basically the foundation of the film, and all the way throughout there's little snippets of their relationship. It shows like scenes of them as children and when they first had their relationship bonding moment, and like the blood situation in the sandbox. Megan Fox's character like had a pin in her finger and Needy sucked the blood out. And so in the Feminine Mistakes podcast, they talked about how that could have been where their bond and connection started, because throughout the film, Needy is aware of Jennifer's presence. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
I mean, the connection between them is visited a lot in the film, but it's never really explained. So having it be more than just, on kind of emotional connection, but also kind of a physical connection based on what happened when they were kids is really interesting way to look at the relationship between them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I noticed at the end of the film when Needy pulls off Jennifer's BFF necklace and it falls to the floor and it's like turning and spinning in the air and there's a drop of blood on it. And I thought that was like a connection between the beginning where they're in the sandbox. Thought that was a nice touch to it.
I feel like Jennifer and Needy's relationship, but just relationships in general, is a large theme of the film, and taking advantage of relationships with things. It's a large theme that continues throughout the film, which is one of the reasons I assume it's started get traction.
I saw that people were talking about how it's quite similar to Mean Girls
Yeah,
because obviously it's based in a high school. All the way throughout the movie, it's humor and one liners, and it's got that same similar quality. And I think it's a shame that Jennifer's body wasn't accepted the same way that Mean Girls was.
it's interesting you bring up the Mean Girls comparison because I made the exact same comparison in my notes.
Yeah,
The film, yeah, it's a horror comedy, but I more than anything, it follows the structure of a teen movie. It has characteristics like a teen movie. The characters are like characters from teen movie. I see it like a teen movie with killing in between.
yeah, definitely. I know there's definitely a lot to the movie. I think they portray it as just this high school movie, and then you look at it and it's like, okay, it's about so much more than that. It's about empowerment, it's about finding yourself and the relationship. At the beginning, you see Needy in the bleachers or in the stand watching Jennifer as a cheerleader, and their eye contact and them smiling at each other is very romantic. And one of the girls behind Needy is like, "Are you lesbian gay?" or something like that.
Yeah,
And that's where you see like the gay narrative starts from the very beginning and right till the end as well, where they're wrestling in Jennifer's bed. I thought that was really interesting. And then like they hold hands in the movie. The kiss is more than a sexual encounter. It's something that Needy's wanted for a really long time because she has been in love with Jennifer for a really long time. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons it's so popular now, that LGBT community have found this film and they've really taken hold of it and accepted it as like a gay film, basically.
a large theme of the film, I think, is being taken advantage of. Jennifer's taken advantage of by the band of start when she sacrificed. Jennifer takes advantage of Colin. She takes advantage of his attractiveness to her to eat him. But more importantly, she takes advantage of Needy constantly. I kind of see Jennifer and Needy a kind of toxic relationship. Needy can't do what she wants. Jennifer says it's okay. After start, how she can't dress. She can only dress how Jennifer wants her to dress, and she can't see Chip unless Jennifer says it's okay. And at least from Needy's point of view, I see it as very much her figuring out of this relationship.
Yeah, definitely. I think they get something from each other that they don't get from other people, and I think it shows like you said, a toxic relationship and the good and the bad. You know, you can see that they have this bond, you can see that they've been friends for a really long time, but you can also see that it's starting to become twisted. I know that people have like paired the Me Too movement and Jennifer's body because of what she went through and how she acts after the trauma. Like she demonstrates things that real victims demonstrate in real life. Like she doesn't talk about the attack. She doesn't tell anyone that it happened or how it happened, and you don't see what happened until later in the movie, which I think is integral to the story. I think if we saw what happened at the beginning, it wouldn't have as much meaning. And even when she tells Needy, it's like she's confessing and like opening up about what's happened, but Needy's like too alarmed to like accept what she's saying and like support her, which can happen to a lot of real life victims when they come forward and tell their story.
The connections between, especially in a post Me Too kind of world, the connections to trauma that's linked to abuse is very prevalent in film. People who, sacrifice Jennifer is a band to a small extent who she idolizes, and they take that admiration, they take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. Which can happen in real life, like when you're working with somebody that you idolize, or you come across somebody that you idolize, whether that be at a concert or something like that. Things like that can happen a lot. I think it's even more meaningful that she's like obsessed with the band, and it shows
Exactly.
like the trauma that can happen from that. It's really interesting how she was a victim and she was preyed upon, and then she becomes the predator. And I think that's an integral part of the movie, is that she is then hunting. And that was something I was going to say earlier. The Feminine Mistakes podcast, they talked about how the victims that Jennifer goes after are vulnerable men or vulnerable boys. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, she's not going after, she didn't try and kill the band that killed her. She didn't try and kill like the evil people. She killed boys who were nice to her, who were sensitive and vulnerable, and who had lost friends in the Melody Lane incident. And I think that's really interesting. And in later in the movie, when she's killing Colin, she says, "I need you hopeless." And again, that's how she felt when she was being sacrificed. She was hopeless. She felt fearful. And so then it's like a play on how she felt, and she wants others to feel like that so that she can, get the satisfaction from killing them, I guess.
Yeah, on a different level, you can assume she just wants other people to understand her pain.
Yeah, definitely. To like get what she went through.
Yeah.
What do you think about the film and its time of the release? Do you think it would be more successful if it was released now, or less successful?
Now I think it'd probably be more successful because, especially now, people have more understanding and appreciation for horror. Like, look at Bloomhouse, for instance. They release multiple horrors on an annual basis, and most of them do very well. And well, political horror is very popular now. It's a very popular subgenre. You've got films like Get Out. You've got films like Us. Look at ways to display horror in a political subculture, and I feel like that's what Gender's Body does.
I know you can see that in films like, have you seen The Perfection?
I haven't, no.
Released that, and I would say it's a similar kind of concept. There's a revenge aspect, there's a trauma aspect, and then like payback at the end. It's a really interesting film. I would say that it falls under that political subgenre as well. I just think it's a really interesting movie, and I think if you look at it from the perspective of now, it still is so, it's even more relevant, I would say, now than it was when it was released.
Just what's your general thoughts on the film? Like your personal opinion?
I really love the film. It's one of those films that I watch every single year. And I mean, as soon as I watched it, I just fell in love with everything that it had to offer. I love the cast as well. I think it's a really strong cast. I love the characters. I think Chip is very underrated in the movie as well. He plays a really significant role in the movie, and I don't think we talk about that enough when we look at the movie and discuss it. What do you think?
Honestly, I don't like it as much as I used to. Purely because when I used to watch it, it'd just be kind of mindless entertainment. But now I've got more of an understanding of it. I appreciate it more. I enjoy it more. But I don't know if I could sit down and watch it, for example, every year. I really like the film. I understand it more, but relate to it less. That's okay because it's not made for me. It's not. I'm not the target audience.
I think that's really interesting though, like that you can enjoy it and know that it's not for your, like for you essentially. I think as I grow older, I mean I'm 27 now, so I think I still enjoy the movie for what it is, and because I can see the message that it's got behind it, I appreciate it a bit more. I think the fact that it's so iconic and that people every year dress up as Jennifer Check for Halloween, I do think it's a movie that's gonna stay for a while. I think it has that like quality about it.
I don't see it being dead. I see a resurgent in it soon, you know. I see it coming back, I don't know, be it a new film, TV show. Really don't see this franchise being dormant. I see it coming back sometime pretty soon in the next few years.
I think that would be really exciting.
And that's all the time we have. Thank you for so much for joining us on this episode of the People's Choice Podcast. Please let us know what you think about Jennifer's Body. Also, don't forget to join us next time where we discuss cult classic Donnie Darko. See you then.